Today, we're going to be attuning our soul with our very weapon to make us more powerful than ever. Welcome to the Swordsoul. Hello folks, I'm the Ghost with Knife and welcome back to more Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And today we have a pretty powerful list for you guys here on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. You see, very recently there was this big comeback campaign for Master Duel where they were like, hey, you should have your friends come in and try to join the game, or people that haven't played in a while return back. We'll give you some rewards if you do. And the first reward you get out of that campaign is a brand new Swordsoul structure deck that gives you pretty much the core of this deck you see here. And I've wanted to play Swordsoul for a bit, so I went ahead and I tried to convince some of my friends to get back on the game, and thankfully they did. And with all of our powers combined, I acquired the core of the Swordsoul cards, which comes with Moyi, Taya, came with 3 copies of Ecclesia, 3 copies of Longyang, came with another copy of Chizao, and a copy of Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Chengying, which is pretty much all you need for like the core of a Swordsoul deck. And then I went online and I looked up some Swordsoul decks out there, and I found a classic deck, Swordsoul Tenyi, which combines the worm monsters of the Tenyi faction with the Swordsoul deck to give you some absolutely ridiculous power in one deck. And that is today's deck. It is an upgrade of the structure deck featuring the Tenyi monsters to create one of the most classic and powerful decks in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and possibly even in Paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Swordsoul Tenyi. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with this deck, so I make quite a few mistakes with it, but let me tell you, this deck slaps something fierce, especially if you can go first. You can set up one of the nastiest boards that is really, really hard to break out there in the metagame right now. Now, this deck has fallen from grace thanks to the onset of Snake Eyes and Branded Despia just being the obnoxious deck that it is, but that does not mean that Swordsoul still don't go out there and slice and dice your opponents to shreds. And to showcase that, I want to go ahead and play the Swordsoul Tenyi deck and finally show it off to all of my fans who probably know all about this deck. And before we get into those games, if you see me make any mistakes or you want to give me advice on how to play this deck, feel free to leave a comment below. This is a deck that I do really enjoy and that I want to get better with. It's simple enough that I think most people will have an easy grasp on it, but I know that there could be some intricacies, maybe some slight variations, some of the plays I make, so go ahead, give me some advice down below. So thank you for tuning in, and let's get right into these games so we can show off the power of Swordsoul Tenyi. Okay, getting into our first game here, we're going second, which is not the best of situations, especially with a hand like this. We have no hand traps to interact with anything our opponent is going to do, but we do have Nibiru in case there's some sort of link spam deck, so maybe that is relevant. Going second with Swordsoul is not the easiest thing to overcome, but they can definitely break through boards if you can get the right setup. My opponent, however, is going to be a live twin deck, which is definitely a link spam deck. So at the end of their turn, or at the end of their big combo line, we're going to Nibiru them, or at least attempt to wipe their board and go ahead and try to produce a counter attack. So my opponent is going to go ahead and go through their evil twin nonsense, going to go ahead and summon more monsters, and as they start to set traps, I'm going to go ahead and play Nibiru here. I wanted to do this in the end of the third trap because I didn't know exactly when they were ending their turn. So Nibiru here is going to get rid of all their monsters because they've summoned 5 or more monsters this turn. Give them a token with the combined stats of all monsters they currently have and give us a big scary rock, and our opponent is going to set 4 and pass. Now this hand is not the best hand to work with. What I'm looking to do here is use the Swordsoul Emergence to kind of scout out if they have an Ash Blossom. If they Ash Blossom this, we can go into Swordsoul of Taya anyways, banish this copy of Emergence from our graveyard to get our token, and start our plays through that. If they don't, we go ahead and get a free Mo-Yi, which we can play if we want to, or we can potentially use for setup later on down the line. I'm going to go ahead and use Swordsoul Emergence. They go ahead and activate the Evil Twin GGEZ, which doesn't really do anything in this situation because they don't have any of the cards they need for it. So we're going to go ahead and get Mo-Yi. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stick to the original plan, and I'm going to go ahead and grab a Swordsoul of Taya so I can try and get my combo off this way. So next turn I can use Mo-Yi and set up a little bit of card advantage. My opponent is going to go into Infinite Impermanence, so I cannot go for my Swordsoul Synchros. But in response, I'm going to go ahead and use the Heavenly Dragon Circle, tribute the monster they negate anyways, to get a new monster to my hand, which is going to be Long Young, and from here we just do our combo. We're going to go ahead and use Long Young to discard the Ashuda, and then afterwards, now this is something really cool you can do, because when you summon a Swordsoul monster, it gives you a token that's a tuner and also a normal monster, which allows us to have a normal monster, so we can go ahead and proc this Vashuda. I'm going to use Vashuda to put one of their traps back in their hand, because I know I can very easily get past the token. We're going to go ahead and summon Baron de Fleur with all of its might. We're going to go ahead and make them take some extra damage because we synchro summoned using Long Yuan. Going to go ahead and get rid of the other trap. They're going to try to set some more traps to try to slow us down, and we're just going to go ahead and Baron that out of here and be like, no, I really don't want to deal with that. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead and use Nibiru to kill the token. Go ahead and use Baron de Fleur. Now, I was looking to use Mo-Yi from this position. I'm not quite sure what I did wrong. I think discarding for Long Yuan is what I did wrong in this situation. But I do have a Baron, and I did stop them from doing some of their nonsense. I'm going to go ahead, and what I'm going to do in this situation, this seems like a bit of a misplay. I think it just flat out misclicked here. I don't know exactly why I traded Baron for a Long Yuan. I think it's just because I had a bunch of attack position monsters, and I was like, if they lightning storm me, I want to have something on the board afterwards. So we went ahead and went into Long Yuan, and my opponent is going to go and try to fetch more of their monsters, and we're just going to go ahead and Ash Blossom that nonsense out of here. They do have one of their traps, but we went ahead and stopped their search, and they have another card to continue to search. But apparently it's not enough, and my opponent decides they've had enough. And just like that, the Swordsouls just out-attrition our opponent. We have really strong effects. What are you going to do about it? We also can summon Baron super easily. Alright, starting off our second game here, we are actually going first this time, and hopefully we can turn this hand into something really good. We're going to go ahead and use Pot of Desires, banish a bunch of cards from our deck to try to draw into some gas, and going ahead and looking at what's in our banish zone, it's a pretty yikes situation. Losing Ecclesia isn't that big of a deal. Losing a Called By can be kind of bad. Swordsoul Emergence, again, not a card we want to see banished. The Tenyi Spirit, it's okay, it's whatever. One Mo-Yi, one Long Yuan, one Troll, and a Taya, and our other emergence here is brutal. We lost 3 of our starters, and we have the last of our 2 Long Yuans in our hand out of our draw. We've lost 2 of our Swordsoul Emergence. Getting more of our cards is going to be a bit of a bummer, especially with what we drew. But I'm going to go ahead and lose Long Yuan. Go ahead and discard that card. Go ahead and just do what I can here. And what can I do? I can use Long Yuan to synchro summon a Baron. And hopefully the power of Baron is just enough to our opponent does not want to have it. So we're going to go ahead and set the Cult by the Grave, make them take a little bit more damage. They're going to go ahead and start some nonsense. They're going to be playing Trap Tricks, which Sarah is a bit obnoxious for. They're going to go ahead and try to use Parallel Exceed, and I'm just going to go ahead and Baron that. I do not want them going into Rafflesia and making my life a nightmare. And my opponent sets a card and just scoops. I'm assuming it's because in their opinion they believe they just can't win from here. If they try to activate Sarah's ability, I'm just going to go ahead and Ash Blossom it. So they're not that far from the truth. Alrighty, getting into yet another game with the Swordsoul deck. This hand is not that interactive, but we are going first, which gives us a great chance to showcase what this deck can do. We're going to Swordsoul Emergence, fishing for the dreaded Ash Blossom. I have ways around it if I need to, but we're going to go ahead and use Moye, and we're just going to start comboing off here. And then we're going to go into the almighty Chi-Xiao, and we're going to use Chi-Xiao to try to grab ourselves another Long Yuan, and we're also going to chain block with Mo-Yi, and now my opponent Ash Blossoms? Yeah, I don't know why they didn't Ash Blossom the Emergence, but, you know, whatever. They blocked my ability to draw more cards. So from this position, I'm going to go ahead and grab Taya, which is a card we can use great for next turn. We're going to go ahead and use Long Yuan, getting rid of the other Long Yuan, going into the almighty Baron de Fleur, which gives us a negate on Baron, gives us a little bit more damage on our opponent, a face down Imperm, and the Chi Xiao. So we essentially have 3 negates, and our opponent is playing the Dark Magician deck. We're going to use Chi Xiao's ability to negate here first and foremost, just because it's the easiest one to use. Magician's Rod is going to get countered. I thought about using the Baron on this, but I'm just going to go ahead and let them have the Dark Magician. There's not much they can do from this position unless they try to fusion summon with Dark Magician. The Eye of Timaeus is a pretty scary card for us. We don't really have an answer to it unless we have... Oh, wait. That's right. We have Baron, and we're just going to use Baron to negate their fusion effect and just completely shut them out of this game. My opponent sets one and passes. We're going to go to my turn, and before I do anything else, I already know what I'm going to do. We're going to go ahead and use Baron de Fleur to destroy their trap, and my opponent has had enough. And just like that, the Dark Magician player has to close their spell book and go the hell home. Alright folks, this is going to be the last game we've got for replays today. I know this is a bit of a shorter video, but there's not a lot to explain. Sword Souls have been done to death. We have some really powerful things we can do, like playing Ecclesia to start our combo, grabbing Mo Yi, so that way we can go ahead and reveal the Ashana with Mo Yi. Our opponent does not have anything, so we're going to go ahead and get our full combo off. We're going to go into Chi Xiao, which is going to get us Long Yuan, and also going to grab us another card, and then from there we're going to get a Baron, and then our opponent is going to be in a lot of trouble. I'm going to go ahead and draw into the Adhara here, go ahead and grab a Long Yuan with our Chi Xiao, use Long Yuan's effect, go ahead and discard another Tang Yi, and then we're going to go into Baron de Fleur. We're going to go ahead and make them take a little bit more damage, and I was going to call it by the grave, but I was just like, no, you might need it later. So we're going to go ahead and hold on to our Ash and our other 2 negates, and then we're going to go ahead and Ash Blossom their elemental hero Stratus. Good lord, I cannot escape this deck. Can I? I feel like I'm seeing this deck every 5 seconds the moment I try to start recording. But yeah, it's heroes with 3 face down cards. I'm not quite sure what these could be, but we're going to go ahead and just use Ash Blossom to stop their Stratos, because I just really don't want to deal with it. And then they're going to try to special summon monsters, and I'm just like, alright, cool, I'm going to Baron that, because there's not really a reason why not to. Go ahead and banish their card, go ahead and let them have to end their phase, not with nothing else on their board, and let the Slobber Knocker begin. I'm going to go ahead and use Gamma Seal to get rid of their Stratos, just in case they try to do something. We're going to go ahead and use Baron de Fleur to go ahead and get rid of a Quaking Mirror Force, which could have been absolutely devastating for me. That is a very powerful card. And then we're going to go ahead and use Chi Xiao to get rid of the Gamma Seal. Baron's going to go ahead and swing, and they're going to special summon. Now, I do make a minor mistake here. I misread this card, and I didn't realize they could grab stuff from the Banish Zone. I thought if I banished Stratos, and they couldn't fusion some of the monster, and it didn't matter. Again, that was just me misreading how Favorite Contact works. So, yeah, very obvious play mistake. We're just going to have to eat it on the chin and get out of here. So they're going to go ahead and use the Destiny Hero Malicious and the Stratos in hand to summon a Sunrise. We're just going to use we're just going to go ahead and use Chi Xiao to negate the activation of the Elemental Hero Sunrise, get that nonsense out of here, and then just beat over it with Baron, because that's just the best thing we can do right now. From there, we're going to go ahead and pass it off to our opponent, who only has 1 face down card. We're going to go ahead and use Baron's effect to summon our Ecclesia. The main reason we're doing this is so we can use Ecclesia to try to get off more of our nonsense. And our opponent is going to go into the Armed Neos with a freaking Neos fusion again. And then Armed Neos is going to try and choose a dragon monster from the graveyard to destroy all monsters we control that are a lower level in it. And I'm just like, dude, they have a level 10 dragon in their graveyard. I cannot give them Chi Xiao. I have to use Chi-Xiao's effect. So they're going to go ahead and call by my Ecclesia, which means I can't use its nonsense, but it's okay because it gives us another banished card. We're going to go ahead and use Chi-Xiao's effect to negate their big effect. So they have to beat over us, and they cannot go ahead and proceed into more of their wonky combos. Yeah, let's go ahead and turn off all of our Neos' effects. You're going to go ahead and banish our Ecclesia, but we don't care because we have a monster that gets bigger the more banished stuff we have. He tries to get some more nonsense, but hey, guess what? You're negated. Get out of here, Arm Neos. You suck and I hate you. So then our opponent, our hand isn't that great. We could Lightning Storm here. We could go ahead and do some 10-yi nonsense. I'm going to go ahead and try to get off the Lightning Storm. And my opponent rewards me by using the Neos fusion to block my attack. And I'm like, oh great, cool. Well, if that's the case, I'm going to go ahead and use my 10-yi spirit to summon the Monk of the 10-yi. This is where the 10-yi half of the deck can truly shine. We have a monster with no effect on field. We have one of our 10-yi spirits in the graveyard. Now we can get some utility off of it. Go ahead and special summon Vishuda from the deck. Go ahead and activate the Adhara's effect to grab Moyi back to our hand, reveal the other 10-yi spirit, and go ahead and get our Chi-Xiao line into some silly nonsense. We're going to go ahead and summon the Chi-Xiao. Go ahead and use Chi-Xiao's effect to get back Long Yuan, and also draw a card with the Swordsoul Moyi. And from this point, my opponent really can't do anything. Especially because I just drew the Heavenly Dragon Circle. We're going to tribute Vishuda to draw a card, but more to get this Arch Nemesis on the board. More importantly, we're using that because we have a normal monster on the board. Now we can put Vishuda in the graveyard, banish it from the graveyard, and return a card back to their hand. So even if they wanted to, they are not escaping this beat down. And from here, we're just going to go ahead and do some Swordsoul nonsense. Going into Long Yuan, going into Chang Ying, the boss monster of the Swordsoul deck. Do a little bit of damage, go ahead and set up an Arch Nemesis because you never know what your opponent's going to do. And from there, we swing into our opponent and win the game. And that is the power of Swordsouls and the power of 10-yi on full display. And with that, I have showcased what happens when you harness the power of the worm within your very soul and use it as a weapon. And that is going to conclude our Swordsoul 10-yi video today. I had an absolute blast playing this deck. There was a bit of frustration, mostly because Snake Eyes is the most current meta deck to be released, and it's very popular, and it is annoyingly good at just extending its plays into the stars above, and if you don't draw the right hand, that can make for a very frustrating experience. But outside of the Snake Eyes, I did have fun with this deck, and I even got some pretty close matches against some of the more powerful meta decks, but I didn't include them in my replays just because I wanted to showcase the strengths of Swordsoul to try to get people like you, the fans at home, to try to bring your friends on in. Make people return, make people play the game, give them your code if you're an active player, so that way you can both get this deck, because Swordsoul is a great place to start and a great deck that you can upgrade from the get-go to have something powerful that you can use right off the bat to start climbing and getting more rewards. So thank you for tuning in. I will give you guys a brief deck list after we get done here, but know that this is a deck list that you could very easily find just by googling like Master Duel Meta or Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro. This is a very popular deck, and it's not going away anytime soon, in my opinion. So thank you for tuning in. The deck list is coming up. If you're not sticking around for that, I hope you have a wonderful day. Alright, for all those interested, the deck list is as follows. 3 copies of Joel and Lockbird, mostly for the Snake Eyes matchups, but sometimes for branded. 1 copy of 10-yi Spirit at Hara, 3 copies of Ash Blossom Joyous Spring, 1 copy of 10-yi Spirit Shthana, I think, 3 copies of Swordsoul of Moyi, 2 copies of Swordsoul of Taya, 2 copies of Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous, 3 copies of Swordsoul Strategist Long Yuan, 3 copies of 10-yi Spirit Vishuda, 2 copies of 10-yi Spirit Ashuna, 1 Gamma Seal, 1 Nibiru, 1 Arch Nemesis Protos, 1 Pot of Desires, 1 Lightning Storm, 1 Triple Tack Talent, 3 Swordsoul Emergence, 2 Called by the Grave, 2 Heavenly Dragon Circle, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and 1 Swordsoul Blackout in the main deck. And the rest of the deck is the extra deck: Yazi, 1 copy of Yazi, Evil of the Yanzing, 2 copies of Baija, Brightness of the Yanzing, 1 copy of Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, 1 copy of Adamancipator, Risen Dragite, 2 copies of Swordsoul Grandmaster Chizao, 1 copy of Baron de Fleur, 1 copy of Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Cheng Ying, 1 copy of Swordsoul Sinister Sovereign Kuizing Yang Long Yuan. That's a long name, sorry about that. 1 Psychic End Punisher, 3 Monk of the Tenyi, and 1 Shaman of the Tenyi. Thank you for tuning in, folks. I hope you have a wonderful day.